Alright, so trying to get beat there. Don't get snapped. We're not getting ourselves. Welcome back again to the Financial Failure. Me, your host, the Financial Failure. This time, we're going to talk more about reckless hobby spending. Another one of my reckless hobbies was playing TCGs or trade card games. Back in the day, played like Pokemon, played Yu-Gi-Oh! Then I got into Magic. I'm just going to talk about Magic the Gathering here and how freaking expensive it is to play the damn game. Back in like 2012, I was graduating college. Yeah, I'm dating myself here. I'm old as hell. I was, playing Yu-Gi-Oh! But right around that time, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was kicking my ass. So I just decided, hey, I'm gonna throw away all the cards. So I threw away literally cards that I don't know how much they're worth now. Sometimes it pisses me off even looking at them. That is a financial failure in itself. And I created a whole little short quick fails on Yu-Gi-Oh! I stopped doing that. But my ex at the time was also like super nerdy like myself, and then she wanted to get into Magic the Gathering. And there was a show called Spell Slingers that my ex loved. And my ex freaking loved Felicia Day. She loved everything Spell Slingers, and she wanted to get into Magic. And for me, being the competitive person that I was like, sure, let's get into Magic. I'll play with you. But come to find out, she wasn't really competitive, so she stopped playing once I got serious. And then when I got serious, I feel like also that's probably why she left me, because I get way into intense in like every little thing that I do and turn into like a huge thing.
That's what she said.
Started playing Magic back in 2013. That's when that show sort of took off. I started on the Theros block. Magic was new, it was interesting, learning all the formats, Commander, Standard, Modern. But for me, I started with Standard. I was talking about Standard and Modern. Then you have Commander, which is its own little thing. But with Standard, those sets rotate. What that means is like you're given a certain block where there's like different sets within this set. So there's like a subset of sets, and those sets contain different boosters. So for me, I think back when I was playing, it was like Theros, I think Return to Ravnica, maybe some other set. So you're given like those three booster sets, play in Standard. And then once Wizards of the Coast, the creators of Magic the Gathering, decides that, okay, they want to release a new set to make more money, then they release these new booster packs, and then they say, okay, you can't use the old stuff that you had before for this format, but you can use that old stuff that you bought for another format, like Modern. For me, starting, I was just like, I don't have enough cards for Modern. Modern was super expensive at the time. I didn't have much dough, so I just stuck with Standard. But then Standard started getting expensive. After a while, playing and then doing pretty well, like if you look up my record online, I think it was like 2 years later, so 2013 I started, 2015, I was able to top 8 at my, like, I don't know, I've done lots of tournaments, but it was like one of my tournaments that I went to, and I got 5th place with a deck that I created myself. When you're trying to do things yourself and not like net deck, as people call it, you end up kind of spending more money because you're sort of trying to develop things, you're sort of trying to learn how to make the mechanics within the game work for you. Even the route that I was taking was just not financially smart. I should have just taken somebody else's deck idea, stole it, spent the money on that, and then I would have been just as fine, because the route that I was taking took lots of trading, it took lots of experimentation. I had to buy cards online all the freaking time. There are tons of like websites where I would buy stuff online. I would buy booster packs, which were like $3.99 a piece, and I would buy like boxes of those, or I'd buy like 10 at a time. I would just continue to buy and buy and buy because I was just experimenting a lot. That was just expensive in itself. And then when you add in that sort of rotation that I was talking about before, then it's like, okay, you did all that work for what? Because now you can't even use those cards anymore. This is not really hitting me yet about how much I'm spending on this game. I continue to play, and then I have more cards, so I'm like, okay, let me get into Modern. So then I try to get into Modern, notice that my Standard cards that are now Modern cards are not really that good for Modern. You have to spend even more money. if you want to be competitive in Magic, you have to spend the money. Thankfully, around this time as I'm playing, my career starts to go off a little bit, so that I'm able to actually pay to play, basically. I start off with like a little cheap red deck or whatever. It's goblins. I'm thinking that this is the best thing in the world. I'm doing well on Friday nights in Magic and stuff. But then because of my competitive spirit, I decide to take the deck out to SCG tours. I go travel outside of the state with buddies of mine, which is also another cost because then you're paying for hotel stay, you're paying for food that's basically out of state, not coming from your refrigerator or anything like that. So like stuff just starts to build up and get expensive. Take the deck there. I noticed that my competition, which is like really top tier people, like names like Reed Duke, if you know who that is, were there, and then they sort of got their sort of free pass because they won so many events prior to sort of already get to that top 16, top 8 level. So at that event, I had to really bust my ass. I got my ass busted. The deck was not as good in that sort of competitive sense. I sort of took a step back. I still wanted to be creative. I started getting into different types of decks, creating more stuff, buying more lands. These TCGs, especially when you play competitively, whether it's Magic the Gathering, which I think is like the peak of like trading card game expenses and just competitive level, versus like, you know, your Yu-Gi-Ohs, your Pokemons, any other sort of trading card game that could be out there. It's just amazing to me how much money is sort of spent just trying to keep up. You know, I was able to later on top 8 again, which is great. I think I made about $100 or so from getting like 5th place at some like random shop or whatever. But I probably spent in Magic, when I think about the hotels, think about the food, think about all the different decks that I've had, think about just literally anything Magic related, whether it's like the play mats, whether it's the die, I think I've probably spent like about 5 grand on Magic. It could have been a little more actually, maybe even 6 grand on the game itself, because I was competitive, I was going full force. And like I said in my other video where I talk about my racing endeavors, you really can't be going in there full fucking throttle, gas on the daggone pedal, because what's gonna happen is, yeah, you might be able to get to where you want to go. Like in Magic, I think if I kept going, I probably would be a top tier player, because I was starting to get more top 8s, which I'll leave in the description below of like where I got top 8s at and like what decks I use. But is it really worth it? Like, are you truly having fun? That's something that I'm learning definitely now, is to just try to have fun, the stuff that you're doing, because very similar to like what I'm doing with YouTube, I'm actually having fun doing this. Like, this is exciting. There might only be like 1 or 2 people watching it at a time, which I can care less, because I'm actually having fun. When I was doing stuff just to be competitive, just to sort of get money, I ended up losing in the long run. I mean, look at the Magic example. I spent 6 grand or so on Magic, and then I've only made about $100. That's a huge loss. Yeah, it's really like my only like financial advice for people. If you have like a hobby like that where it's like costing you a crap ton of money, just take a step back. Remember why you actually enjoy said hobby. Try to sort of take the competitive edge off. Try to enjoy it without spending lots of money. Like, for example, with Magic, I could have just printed out fake cards and played it that way. I didn't have to like spend money on like the actual cards and go to tournaments and stuff like that. I could have just played at home with like my friends, with like, you know, proxies is what we called them. Think about other alternatives. I really kind of want to tailor these videos with like some actual advice to like the mistakes that I made, but really a couple things that I want to highlight. 1, don't go all in, just take it easy. 2, remember why you're actually doing what you're doing, because if you can't really have that clear sense and that clear mindset of like, okay, I'm doing this because I love it, then you really need to take a step back. And 3, find alternatives. Like, you can still do the things that you love, you know, not have to spend all the money. Like, for example, I know I'm talking about cars here, but like even with my racing, I stopped racing. It's super expensive. My car is gone, but I still have a racing sim, and I'm still able to enjoy racing. Those are like my 3 tips, and I really hope that you guys can take something away from my videos in the future. This is great. Peace. All right. Not how I would like to win, but I'll take